Here's something that the world hasn't seen. You ready?
Yeah.
I guarantee you this is something there is not, this is huge. This is early American history. That's handwritten. Covering 9 years, handwritten history right there. 1795 till 1804. Why does it end in 1804? Because that's when this guy is killed in a duel with Aaron Burr.
No.
This is Alexander Hamilton's law ledger right there.
Man, I was invited by my good friend Dana Harper to come to the Moon's Rare Books to meet an incredible man who's got some incredible things to show us and some great stories, Dana told me. So with that said, Dana, just kind of get us started here of what we're doing here, because I can see there's a lot of incredible books and things in here, you know, and I'm thinking this is going to be a real treat.
Terry, I am so excited. Reed has been a family friend of ours for a long time, and the two of you, it's long overdue that I didn't get the two of you together to meet because of his love for books, because of his love for history. He's got such a remarkable story, and he's inspired so many people that love history and love books, and they listen to him and the kindness that he shows him. He had two people that came in off the street one night before he was closing, and he took the time to talk to them and visit with them and tell them all about the store, the amazing books that he's found and collected. And what he didn't know is that one of those people was my son and the other was my daughter-in-law. And they just were absolutely overwhelmed by his kindness and just made me smile even more because of what Reed does. And I'm always grateful when he's in town that he'll give me a call and we can get together and catch up and talk. And he's so busy, he's all over the world, and I'm so grateful for his time right now to take a break to talk to us and get to visit with us, because he's a busy man just like you. Terry, you came in last night. You've been on the road, you've been going, and I am so grateful that you came to be here too so that I could introduce Reed to you, because your story is a remarkable one. And as a treat, we have Tisha Ingram. She's from Virginia, and she's also a lover of history and all things and books and all the wonderful things that books are. And she's got stories too that Reed's shared with her, and now that she's looking for to save the history so it doesn't get thrown away when these old libraries are getting rid of books. Oh my gosh, these treasures are being thrown away like they're nothing. So, Reed, do you have anything to say?
Let's just do a show and tell.
Okay.
I'll just start showing things, and you can ask me anything. You can name any person, place, event.
Okay.
Anything that's happened in the history of the world since the printing press, past 600 years.
Okay.
And I'll show you something that ties to it. It may not be direct, but it will be within no more than 1 degree of separation.
Okay.
I don't need Kevin Bacon 6 degrees.
Okay.
I can do 1 degree or less, anything I can tie to it. For example,
All right.
I'm going to give you an example so you understand the degree of separation. If you said American Civil War,
Yeah.
I could show you something American Civil War, but if I didn't have American Civil War, I could show you 1 degree, Abraham Lincoln. I could show you something Abraham Lincoln. I could show you Uncle Tom's Cabin, which Lincoln said, Mrs. Stowe, Harriet Beecher Stowe, your book's going to start a war. Yeah, it did start a war. Or I could show you a book printed anywhere in the world if it was printed during the Civil War, which means I could show you this book right here, Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. That is a first edition 1862, printed the second year of the Civil War.
Wow.
So, doesn't matter what you say, I have something that ties to it in this back room.
So my love of history, my love of just the amazing treasures that are out there. Tisha lives in Virginia. A history bed of all these things. Tisha, I'm going to have you pick something out of history that you like because of all the history you've experienced there in Virginia. What would you pick for Reed?
I'm actually going to put Reed on the spot because tomorrow's Easter. So how or what do you have that ties to Easter?
Well, I mean, where do we get the Easter story? We get the Easter story in the Bible. I have Bibles from each of the past 6 centuries. If you want to see what the Easter story looked like right after it was Gutenberg, right here. Right
Holy
behind me.
cow.
This is a Bible right here, 20 years after Gutenberg. There's not going to be an English Bible for 75 years, but if you were on that ship with Christopher Columbus, that's how you would read the Easter story.
Holy cow.
This is in Latin, but this is a handwritten Bible that is over 5 centuries old. Okay, here we are. We're in the book of Luke right here. You go to the beginning, but that's in Latin.
Holy cow.
And you go, okay, well, let's find one where we can read it. Okay, let's go to the next century. We'll go to the 1500s. Now they finally have English Bibles. And this Bible is, let's see when this one is from. And he said, well, that's 1600s, 1659. But
Holy cow.
But at least now we can read it. But we go right here.
So have you taken the time to, I don't know if you can read Latin or if you've had people do it. How does it translate from that one you just had to this one? Is it pretty close?
It's close, but not exact because...
Different meanings?
Well, because the Latin Bible came from the Hebrew and Greek, and by the time you go to Latin, if you go to Latin to English, it's not as good as if you come directly from the Greek or Hebrew. Every time it goes through another language, you lose some of the meaning.
Yeah.
But we have the Easter story right there.
Holy
how
cow.
It was 600 years ago, 400 years ago, right there.
Nice question.
Then if you want to read even more.
Well, I see something I have just right over here. If we hopped in a time machine,
Okay.
the three of us, magically went back to January of 1776, lots going on. But I don't think most people realize if we go to January 1776, George Washington only has about a third of the people backing him.
No, I didn't know that.
A third are strongly behind King George, and a third are on the fence. There's not going to be a Declaration of Independence unless something happens. Something did happen. A guy who had a gift of writing wrote a little pamphlet that got people off the fence.
What was that pamphlet?
That pamphlet was Common Sense by Thomas Paine. Written January 9th, 1776 in Philadelphia. Now there's only a handful of surviving copies of that.
Do you have one?
Well, of the original pamphlet. Like Library of Congress, Harvard, Yale, British Library.
Yeah.
Provo, Utah, right here. One of the
Holy cow.
few surviving copies. Here it is. Original copy, Thomas Paine's Common Sense, printed by Robert Bell in Philadelphia, January 1776, right there.
Holy cow.
That's amazing. I won't touch it.
Now, just to show you how random it, people say, what are you looking for? I say, I don't know till I see it. I was in New York 2 weeks ago, and this is the largest gathering of antiquarian book dealers in the world. It's once a year in New York. I got there, and people know me because I've been there a while. And this one big dealer, one of the most famous in the world, set aside something specifically to me. Didn't offer it to anybody else. Says, Mr. Moon, I have something for you. I think you'll like it. I went over there, took a look at it. Deal. You ready to see?
Yes.
I haven't even done a video. I haven't even told the world yet that I have it. In fact, the world doesn't even know this exists.
Do we have to shut the camera off or can we keep filming?
No, keep going.
Oh, good.
Holy cow.
Okay, this is a treat for all of you seeing this right now, too, because I have no clue what it is.
Well, yeah. This little bit of paper right here is the earliest draft of the surrender of Japan, World War II.
No way.
This is big. I mean, this is...
Wow.
Where did you find it?
In New York, you just said.
So when is the official surrender of Japan? September 2nd, 1945. What is this dated? 31st of August, 1945. This is 2 days before.
Wow.
This is the secret cable that came in.
The one that they sent. Yeah.
This is the secret cable, and this guy, Charles Jensen, got it. And then it's like look, we'll go 2 pages over right here. We hereby proclaim the unconditional surrender of the representatives of the Japanese Armed Forces and all the armed forces under Japanese control. This is the layout of the original surrender of Japan.
Yeah.
There is nothing in the National Archives, Smithsonian, or anywhere earlier than this. This is 2 days before. This is the earliest copy right
This is
here.
a treat. Thank you.
Holy cow.
There's never a time that I've been here that Reed does not blow my mind with something that he's acquired or that he has.
So
Man.
they say, what do we do with it? Throw it away. He goes,
Oh no.
thank you very much. I'll keep that. And so that stayed in the family for 80 years.
Wow.
80 years until it recently left. So here's the thing. I don't know what I'm going to get, but if I get it, it has a story.
I would have a hard time selling any of this stuff just because of my love of history and how it all ties into everything. And Reed is just phenomenal with all these things that you never hear about. And if it wasn't for Reed talking about it, no one would ever know about it. Because, I mean, he goes long and hard to find this.
I can tell you right now, man, he is passionate about history.
Well, and he loves. I mean, it's not that you just find stuff; you find it and you do the research on it.
Well, and I have a pretty large social media following, so I get the message out there. People who would never see this, sometimes people say, oh, that should go to the Smithsonian or whatever. And it's like, I have 5 times the social media following the Smithsonian. My stuff goes all over the world. You don't have to go to Washington, D.C.
Amen to that.
You can see it anywhere in the world. I'm sharing history that has never been shown. Here's something that the world hasn't seen. You ready?
Yeah.
I guarantee you this is something, there is not, this is huge. This is early American history. That's handwritten. Covering 9 years. Handwritten history right there.
What is it now?
1497.
I'll get to it.
I get so excited I can hardly stand it.
It covers 9 years. 1795 till 1804. Why does it end in 1804? Because that's when this guy is killed in a duel with Aaron Burr.
No.
This is Alexander Hamilton's
wow.
law ledger right there.
Wow.
That is the original. There's only one in the world. The government doesn't have one. Smithsonian doesn't have one. It is here. Right here. Alexander Hamilton's law
Wait.
ledger.
And touch that one too.
Well, and
That is
right,
amazing.
Right here, he got bored one day and he started doodling what would be the lyrics to a future song about him. Alexander Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton. There it is, right there. Handwriting of Alexander Hamilton.
Huh.
That's a big deal.
That is
Now, it's been
huge.
digitized. And it's at Columbia University, which used to be King's College, which is where he went. But the original is right here. And that's a whole hour-long story on how I got that. But everything has a story.
I love
So you said you had a social media following. How can people find that following you?
Moon's Rare Books, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube.
Cool.
TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, right now about 3.8 million followers.
it. Wow.
Nice. Dana, man, thank you. This is a treat.
No, thank you for coming so you can meet him because both of you are doing the same thing, only you're doing it differently than he's doing it. And you've been sharing your work for a long time.
I'm an imposter, pretender, man. He's the real deal.
Reed is the real deal. But the thing is Reed almost never came to be because of his life and the things that were going. It was his passion and the things that he loved about doing that took him to where he is now. Because if you found out the story of how it started, you would think there's no way he would have survived that crash and burn. But he did.
Okay, just to show you, cover a little bit of everything. I'm going to show you something now that the number of people who know about this in the world, I would say over 90% of the people in the world have heard about this. But this is the original, okay? You don't even know where it's going, right?
No, I
You
have
ready?
no clue. You blow my mind.
1976, the original shooting script of Star Wars.
Oh my gosh.
Ah,
Now, see, that's history. That's pop culture.
Yeah.
Now, we open that up, and there it is. This is the original. That's the original concept art, the Star Wars. And this is the copy that belonged to Roger Christian, who is the guy who literally made the lightsabers. He is the guy who won an Academy Award for this. Guess what the original title was?
What?
The Adventures of Luke Starkiller.
huh.
Right there. And this reads differently. George Lucas wanted it to be a little more serious than it was. You want an example? I mean, this is 50% different than the movie.
Yeah.
The movie ended up being more comic book dialogue almost. You think of it was more slapstick comic book.
Yeah.
No, he wanted it to be serious. For example, the battle between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader.
Yeah.
In the movie, Darth Vader insults his former teacher, master, and says, "Your power's weak, old man. You should have never come back." Well, then it's like Obi-Wan Kenobi almost says, "If you strike me down, I'll come back even more powerful than you can imagine." It's like, I'll take you on. George Lucas wanted him to maintain that role of sensei. You know, just like, no, be calm. His answer here, after he's insulted, "Your power's a weak, old man. You should have never come back," he calmly responded, "You only know half the Force stars. You perceive its full power as little as a spoon perceives the taste of food."
Mind blown.
No, but it's just fun. Star Wars is bigger today than it was 50 years ago. It came out, 49 years ago. It came out actually 48 years ago, but they filmed it 49 years ago. So, Star Wars, you know, early American history, Bible 600 years old. We have a little bit of everything. We've got some crazy stuff too. Stuff you wouldn't expect.
Like, one of the ones that I like is the witch's hammer.
Let's grab it.
All right. I think that every clergyman should read this cover to cover. If you're in clergy and you are leading a flock of people that listen to you, you should read this, because the history behind this says a lot of why they did what they did. And when you rule on somebody or look at somebody, how you perceive them and how you judge them.
Well, this book originally came out in the late 1400s. And there was a witch hunting craze in Europe from about 1500 to 1750. Tens of thousands of people were put to death that were accused of witchcraft. I didn't say they were witches, accused of witchcraft. This is a 1,000-page witch hunting guide. How to identify a witch, how to break spells, how to torture, get confessions. The means justified the end. This was used to justify, and they also used the Bible to justify putting witches to death, that the sorcerer should be put to death. And this is the guide. It's known as the most sinister work ever written on witchcraft and demonology, because they said that witches were in a pact with the devil, and so that's what this is about. But that's written by a guy in 1487. But you go a century or so later, you know who else was not a fan of witches?
Who?
King James.
But didn't he write the book on demonology?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, demonology and witchcraft. And what do I have right here? That very book.
Oops, sorry.
Let's take them all.
Right here. Now, some people would be concerned, why am I not using gloves? Gloves have inadvertently caused more damage than they've ever prevented. You have no tactility. You can't turn a single page. The cotton fibers catch the corners and they flake off.
Really?
But this is like this. He wrote 3 books. The second book on demonology, a description in sorcery witchcraft. And then it's like 14 years later, King James Bible. But this came first. Because he felt witches were trying to harm him. And then you have Shakespeare at the time who goes, I'm going to incorporate this into one of my plays, Macbeth, about witches and stuff. So you start piecing all these things together and it starts painting a pretty interesting picture of our history.
So I have a question for you on the witch hunters, the witch's hammer. How many people in our society would survive if they used that book on them? People that took vitamin C. People that took supplements.
Really?
People that took things to help them feel better.
Oh, my wife has told me many times if she lived 400 years ago, she'd have been put to death. You know, anybody who had a gift of healing or knew how to do certain things, they would have been put to death. If I went back in time and showed you the Bible on my iPhone, I'd be put to death. Because if I literally showed you the Bible on my iPhone, I'd have been put to death.
Witchcraft.
because that would have been witchcraft, something they didn't understand.
So a lot of you that are listening to this right now, you'd be on that list just for the little things that you're doing, not even realizing that that's in that book what they would clarify that would be worthy to put you to death. Or to take you from your family and put you to death. Or to torture you until you finally admitted that, yes, that's what you're doing and you should be put to death.
For things that we look at it as holistic now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Anything holistic, you'd be put to death. So, doctoring and everything like that for all our friends that like to do that kind of doctoring, which they're really good at.
Did you know the Amish had a grimoire?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Well, what is a grimoire? It's recipes or spells or things for curing. I have it right here. This little guy right here. That's a new acquisition too.
Yeah.
What is it? The Long Lost Friend, a collection of mysterious and invaluable arts and remedies for man as well as animals, with many proofs. And then it's right there, Lebanon, Pennsylvania. And then you go right here. Whoever carries this book with him is safe from all his enemies, visible or invisible. And whoever has this book with him cannot die without the holy corpse of Jesus Christ, or drowned in any water, or burned up in any fire, nor any unjust sentence passed upon him. So help me. I mean, we haven't even gotten into it yet. It's already sounding pretty cool to me. But then there's different remedies for, but it's right there. Oh, okay. To release spellbound persons, to compel a thief to return stolen goods. I mean, this is...
So what a lot of people don't realize that this was very common. And you go back to the LDS church in the history before Nauvoo, during Nauvoo, there's also things like that I saw in coming across my research. Scarves that would heal you if you touched them.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is a grimoire. Now, what else do you have?
Do you have anything like that from Nauvoo? My love of Mormon history. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Oh, no. Well, actually, in 1839, Joseph Smith blessed a cloak
Okay.
for healing.
I remember that.
It's the John Low Butler cloak.
Okay.
Got passed down through the kids. Everybody wanted a piece, so they, just like Joseph's coat of many colors, they cut it into pieces, so little fragments have been passed around. I do have a fragment of that cloak.
Well, what was the promise if one had that to be protected?
Oh, well, for healing, for whatever. Healing, blessing, the touch of the cloak.
Can we see it?
Yeah.
I am really interested in all these things that Reed's sharing us. Terry has also done a lot of this stuff with his research.
Nothing like this.
I know, but the thing I am so grateful for...
But you research different.
You do research different, but you've always been so good to share with people that are interested in those things. And we somehow been blessed to have a network of people that are very curious like we are and love to do this kind of things, and they share also. You were asking me about a friend of yours that had talked about him that has something that is very unique that we watch and see, and even looking and not understanding the things that we see in our world, it's interesting to research the history on them and go back as far as we can go and say, okay, what are we looking at? What are we possibly dealing with? And just the curiosity that goes with that. If there's anything else too, like with our children and friends and family, I hope that they have that passion also and that they keep doing that.
Oh, yeah.
So Tisha, with the books that you've seen back in Virginia, what are some of the things that you've seen that have stood out to you? Tisha also has a daughter that loves history and is a person that she has gone to great lengths to find books and things that she's liked. Your daughter Whitney?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of the history is our family, just because of the military side of it, we've moved around a lot and maintained the history of just even in other countries. And so we've been able to acquire some of the history things. I just found, like I was saying, an old hymnal book that was from the 1700s, and just different things that people just want to throw away. I was just telling Terry, you go to thrift stores in small towns and people that have passed away, and kids that are in their 20s or 30s now look at it as just sometimes just a book, and they just donate everything and don't realize the history that they're giving away. And in today's age too, when we have banned books and said everything's going digital, but to hold a book and to see the original part of it, and to see and imagine how many hands it's gone through and who sat and read it, and how it changed somebody's life, I think is an amazing thing.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good thought. Yeah.
I mean, how many times did you have a bad day and you sat down and read a book, or you wanted to hear about something that happened in history and you researched it? Well, if we didn't have those books and we didn't have those things, how would we find it? Because everything is digitalized, that's great, but if you could actually touch it and look at that handwriting, like Reed has been showing us, what difference, I mean, that's huge. It's not just something that's been digitized.
Okay. Well, I didn't find that one, but I did find another healing artifact.
All right, tell me about it.
It's Lorenzo Snow.
Okay.
He was given a promise that he would have the faith and the healing ability that even his shadow would have the ability to heal, and that people would send him their handkerchiefs and scarves to bless. This is a handkerchief that he blessed right there. And this has been in, the story of this one is in the Deseret News.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, the story is this family had a son who was a missionary in the South and got malaria and was unable to leave his bed. And so Lorenzo Snow blessed this, sent it to him, and when he touched it, he stood up, he was healed, immediately, and the doctors had no hope. So, this is a known healing artifact that is documented in a newspaper from over 100 years ago.
Okay. I'm not going to take it. I'm just going to look at it if that's okay. Okay, I'm going to...
It's
okay if I open it?
Well, yeah, but it's somewhat fragile because it was unfortunately stored in direct sunlight, which made it kind of...
So it looks like it's silk, is it?
It is silk, yeah.
Okay, I'm very...
It does look pretty fragile.
Very fragile, especially when it's in sun for decades.
Yeah.
In between glass, that was...
Just
So,
tried it.
yeah.
How'd you acquire that one, Reed?
I have a good friend who helps me track down these artifacts.
I think you have lots of good friends.
Yeah, yeah. I know people who know people.
That's right.
What is one thing that you would love to get that you don't have now?
Well, here's the thing. When it comes to books, I have literally tracked down every book that I want.
Oh.
The question is, what books belong to people that would I like to get? And there's a book I would love to get that belonged to Joseph Smith, the Bible he read when he was 14. Nobody knows where that is. Nobody knows where that is. I would love to find 116 lost pages that have some pretty interesting content.
Yeah.
There are things I would like to get, but I recognize it when I see it. But when it comes to first editions of books, every first edition I have tracked down. First edition Lord of the Rings, check. First edition Jane Austen, check. First edition Darwin's Order of the Species, check. First editions of all those. First edition King James Bible, check. I've tracked down all those. So, but I've been doing it for 38 years. So.
How did you get started in this? Was this just something that you wanted to start collecting?
To me,
some
this
of
is a
these,
great
or-
story because when Reed was doing this, no one like that was doing that, and Reed basically filled something to help somebody that's kind of spun up into this because someone had come to you and asked for something, and you thought, well, tell them the story.
Well, first of all, I finished high school, went to college. High school guidance counselor says you're very good in sciences. You should try that. And so I did a semester of that, and I said, no, I'm not feeling it. You're very good in math. Okay, well, I got in an accounting program, and after a year, I wasn't feeling that. And then I did some business management, but I ended up getting my degree in international relations or political science, which is history. But you got to take that to the next level. And so I just, by default, went back to Texas, got involved with my family's insurance agency, but we had a small community bookstore. just to service the local community. We'd had it for about 10 years. It couldn't even pay the bills, so it had to be literally inside the insurance agency. So I got my insurance license. I started selling insurance, but I'd do anything to take a break from selling insurance to talk to customers coming in for books. And it didn't take me long to realize I'd rather talk to people about books than selling insurance. And told my dad, I'd rather sell books than insurance. And he goes, well, you'll never make a living selling books. He says, you literally would have to quadruple the sales to even make it feasible. Over the next 2 years, I quadrupled the sales of the bookstore and said, bye-bye insurance. And at that time, this is mid to late 80s, people were coming in asking for books that were out of print. There's no internet. I'd write it down on an index card, and I'd go out looking for it. And I'd hit bookstores. And back then, a book rate was like 19 cents a pound. So I could go to a books out of state, find a box of books, and ship it for $4.50. It may take 2 weeks, but I would ship all these books to my bookstore. And pretty soon that was the favorite part for people to come in the bookstore and just kind of rummage through these older books. And that's really, but my budget back then, I was buying used books for $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 and selling them for $5, $10, $15. And that's how all this started 38 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Was it just an easy road like that?
No, it's tough. It was a lot of people, especially a lot of young people, I want to do what you do. I said, well, it took me 38 years to get here, but a lot of people, they want it now. And I mean, there are some advantages, the internet and other venues to sell, because before, how would you sell anything? There was literally you had to have somebody come to you, or you had to place an ad in a newspaper or something like that, and it was just not feasible. But now, I tell people, you can do what I do. You can start on any budget. If you have $50, in fact, I started doing a video, but then stopped it. But I took a $20 bill, and I'm filming this, and I went to a bookstore, knowing what I know, went through, and within 20 minutes, bought 3 books for $20. They were all first editions that were kind of overlooked, and each one of them was worth $100 to $200 each. I sold those. I turned $20 into $500. Then I took $500 and turned that into $2,500. Then I turned $2,500 into $10,000, and then $10,000 into $30,000.
That's
with $20 in 1 year.
And that sounds easy, you just saying it, but man, to have the knowledge, to know what you're looking at, to have the, that.
Well, and
that just doesn't come overnight.
I had the ability to find really cool books before I had access to the people who could afford them, because there's a barrier to entry to a lot of the wealthier people who will just pull the trigger and buy those books. They have to have a confidence level. Mm-hmm. And that finally kind of came together about 18 years ago. 2007, I remember, was finally got my first whale. And then it was like, okay. And then they introduce you to more of their friends, and now with social media, people all over the world will call up and just order like all of these books with a confidence level, because they've seen me for 3 years, and they go, okay, this guy's the expert.
Well, you're trusted though too, because people have done business. And one thing about you always get more value, because you give a good deal to them too, and you're still able to make and keep the lights on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's one of the things that I really like about Reed and the things that he's been doing. I want to know if you have a question, Terry, for Reed, because of the things like that you do and the things that you've done. We have a good friend, Steve Campbell, back in Arizona, and he's another person that loves history, and he and I have done a lot of exploring and expeditions and things into the Arizona history. And that's also where you became interested in some things and artifacts that were found that people say that don't exist. Do you have any questions for Reed about any of that stuff? I don't want you to have to say anything that you don't want to say on camera. Yeah. But anything that you can talk about on camera.
So first off, I just want to say, it's obviously that you have a love for history, because you wouldn't know about all these different books unless you had some kind of a love for history, and probably that love for history drives you to find them certain books, that certain artifact for that. So is that just something that you've already always had, just an interest in history, or
Well, I grew up in a family where, my dad, had a PhD in chemistry, and we had a nice library, and my mother was very well read and graduated from college. And so it was instilled as young people. I found it fascinating, the history that was shared, but we also had somewhat humble beginnings. And so my first passion for collecting had to be free. And so it was rocks.
Really?
And so my parents gave me, I remember when I was about 6 or 7, I got a rock pick. That was my birthday and Christmas gift. And we lived in Oklahoma. And after a rainstorm or whatever, you go out, you can see fossils on top of the ground, arrowheads. And so I was a little Indiana Jones as a 7, 8-year-old going out there looking for treasure with a rock pick. Books didn't come in until after college.
So, Terry, you have also done the rock pick thing. You've been into caves. You've been exploring back where the things that don't exist. Read some of the stories about the things that you've seen that you want to talk about on camera. Because I'm thinking of a couple of them. I'm thinking of some stuff by Superstition Mountain. I'm thinking of some stuff in the Grand Canyon back in Arizona that are interesting, that people say that's not part of our history, but you're seeing the artifacts and the hieroglyphs and things like that on the rocks.
I want to know more about his history and his life and his books. But
okay, I don't blame you.
Some strange artifacts that's been found. That suggests that there was intercontinental travel before Columbus. And maybe the scholars are starting to maybe come around that maybe there was. Now they're starting to say maybe the Vikings were over here. But there's been some artifacts, like there was an Egyptian rock found in 1918. It was carved. It was the shape and size of a chicken egg. It had markings on both sides of it. The young girl that found it, her and her dad just thought it was Indian scratchings on it. Well, she kept it all her life, and when she was older, she got terminal cancer, and she was dying. But her great granddaughter came over there and was visiting with her, and they was rummaging through things and found this rock. And so the great grandmother gave it to the great granddaughter, and she kept it all her life because it was something special, given to her by her great grandmother just before she passed away. And in the 70s, when King Tut's tomb was making its rounds through the United States, the exhibit was, the Smithsonian Magazine did an article on it, on King Tut's tomb and the exhibit. And she was in the dentist office, and she was reading that, and she got noticing that there was some markings on King Tut's sarcophagus. There's the exact same markings that was on this rock egg that her grandmother had given her. And so she took it to the University of Berkeley, and they authenticated that it was a piece of alabaster from Egypt, and it had King Tut's high priest signature on one side and the cartouche of his name on the other side. And it was found in 1918, but they didn't really break into King Tut's tomb. They didn't really know who he was till 1922. So things like that have been found around that goes against what history says really happened, fascinates me and interests me, and who knows the real story of this rock egg? How did it get there? But do you know any situations like that in your studies, your research, your things that just didn't fit?
Well, that's a whole different area, and I'm not an expert. And people will bring stuff to me, and they'll say, I got this, or I was down in Mexico and I got this, and I am not trained in that.
Yeah.
So, I thank them for a fun story, but I'm just not an expert. But having said that, I have acquired. Would you like to see the oldest writing that I have?
Yes.
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 And I'll tell you, it's over 4,000 years old.
Wow.
How's that work?
Is it Samaritan?
Sumerian, yeah.
Okay, this never ceases to blow me away. One of the things, going back to Terry, have you ever been on a Black Hawk helicopter looking for treasure?
I have.
So there's a big interest in what's our history and what's out there in Utah, all throughout the United States. And for our friends and family that are listening, boy, I just hope that you guys stay curious and like you encourage your little ones to read books and take time for them to go explore and do these kind of expeditions, because there's so many places you can go take your family and see a lot of these things. And up by Vernal, Utah, I mean, there's so much history up by the Dry Fork Canyon where they have the petroglyphs on the side of the canyon there, and all the things that just talk about who knows what. I've seen them. I don't read their language, but I mean, you probably have your own idea from living there and doing those kind of things. All right, let's see what Reed's got.
Okay, if we go back, well, first of all, I acquired this. It came from the family of an archaeologist, and the Wild West for archaeologists was like 100 years ago over in, Iraq, Iran, and but they were working in conjunction with the government, so this stuff was allowed to leave. But I acquired what are called Babylonian cylinders. So these are like little rocks that are carved into, but then you can take that cylinder that's etched into with writing and drawings, roll it, and it gives you a message. I have 5 of those.
Wow.
And they've been translated.
Can you read them to us too and tell us?
Well, here we go. Look at that right there. Like, this is what made that. That is what made that. These are Babylonian cylinders etched into stone. What is the first one? Priest offering introducing worshippers to a seated god, Samas, inscribed with the name of Lu Ningrosu, son of Ur. I mean, this is, and when is that? 1800 BC, 3,800 years ago.
Wow.
This one down here, 2,300, 4,300 years ago, number 4. Similar scene as number 1, inscribed Ur, son of Ur, and the official notary. And then this one, goddesses adoring the name of Numa, Ilu, Risa, anointing a priest of Ea, king of the Abyssin son of. I mean, this has been translated right there.
That puts out a pretty detailed...
And how would they carve something that small without...
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Well, with some pretty fine tools.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
It's amazing.
But, yeah, that came out of an archaeologist collection.
That's awesome.
Who did a lot of the legwork and translating and everything. So, I mean, that typically doesn't fall within what I do, but it's like, hey, if I come across it, why not?
Yeah.
Last time I heard it, you have something from the Wild West, a famous gunslinger that...
Well, okay. I know where you're probably going.
You know where I'm going?
So sometimes I track down a book, but what I find inside the book is more interesting than the book itself. Now, this happens to be a pretty cool book, in my humble opinion. It's a book on Jesse James, famous outlaw, train robber, bank robber. But as I was going through the book, found a little bookmark. But what is the bookmark? It's an invitation to a hanging in Tombstone, Arizona, 1905.
Really?
Still doing hangings.
1905.
1905. Right there.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
So little artifacts found in a book about an outlaw. Right there. And you can actually look up this person. He killed a sheriff. In fact, they wrote, Eric Clapton, I think, wrote, he shot the sheriff.
Yeah, right there you go, right there.
There it is. There's the inspiration right there.
Cool.
So history just keeps coming.
Yeah.
So what is the most interesting, when you acquire books, has there ever been a book that you felt was more than just a book? Like some things they talk about haunted objects, mirrors, books. a favorite something of somebody that they had. Have you ever encountered that when you purchased a book?
Yeah, 100%. There are definitely books that have. I've had a book not let me buy it.
Really?
It attacked me.
What do you mean it attacked you?
Well, okay, so here's the story. I didn't know it at first. I went to a book fair in York, in England, and York's a very haunted town. It just is. 2 hours north by train from London. I went to a book fair, and I was looking around, and all of a sudden, I got this intense headache, and I've never had a migraine or anything. And I'm going, oh my gosh, this must be what a migraine is, because it was painful. And then I thought, my electrolytes are low or something. I got to go get something to eat. And so I left, went to, they had a cafe. I sat down and went away, and I go, oh, that was it. Next day, I'm walking around, and this man comes in, Mr. Moon, you haven't visited my booth yet. I have some books to show you. And walk up to the booth, and I go, oh, I was here yesterday. And then I look around, and then I look over, ooh, and I see the book that I was reaching for when the headache came for. And I went to reach for it again, and it's just like when you go diving and you don't pressurize, the further you go, like every foot gets more painful. The closer I got, the more painful it.
Wow.
But I was insistent. I was going to get it. And my head almost exploded. But I will never tell what that book is, because that only gives it more power.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. And then, just sheer out of curiosity.
Did you have somebody else go try to buy it?
No. I Googled it. And then just looking at the picture did the same thing.
Really?
No way.
And lesson learned. I will never, lesson learned.
Wow.
That one book.
So it's always very interesting, the people, I'm sensitive to different types of energies and things. And I think all people have the God-given gift where they can be a family coming back from the other side of the veil to encourage, some people call it the Holy Ghost that are Christian, being inspired to be comforted from the other side of the veil. But those things are real and they exist. And like you will walk into a place, I'm a real estate broker, and I've walked into houses that I know nothing about the history of the house, but I just feel this really sad feeling, or I'll feel, I don't want to be here, I want to get out of this house. Then only later find out what the history is on the property we're looking at. But the thing that's so sad is, as a real estate broker, I'm not allowed to tell you anything about that. It's against the law, because I can't prove it and it doesn't exist. So I recommend talk to the neighbors that live next door, because they'll gladly tell you if it's haunted or not. So any other haunted things that you have?
Well,
any other worldly things that you have that you've collected?
Well, I have something which surprised me, because the book let's just say I wasn't surprised that one book wouldn't let me get it, because it didn't want me to tell the history of it.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I have another book. Well, I'll just get it.
Okay. You know, Reed could go on and do a series.
Yeah, I believe
and just keep on going, because there's just so many interesting stories here. And even like the energy that I feel in this room is just, it's like the volume's turned up all the way to the right. It's high. Do you feel anything like that?
Yeah, you can feel.
So, but just the collection of eons and eons. And you look at all the people that have read the different books that you have over the centuries, brought happiness and the joy that it came from reading a novel or a new book or something that you were curious about. What do you have there?
There's white magic and black magic,
right.
And this is black magic.
Tell me about that one.
This one is, yeah. This one, long story short, is for the Conjuration of Demons.
Probably not going to want to touch that one.
Yeah, this is a sorcerer's manual of 60 incantations for summoning demons, also with an exorcism spell at the end. It's like, holy crap, got the wrong one here.
Yeah.
It's to try to get rid of it. But this is...
So that's handwritten.
This is handwritten going back
how many centuries?
Over 4 centuries.
Really?
And you come here to the very end, end of the book on the Conjuration of Demons. It's in Latin.
Wow.
So in my vaults, I have to balance. I have to have some good books balance out with the bad books. Otherwise, it gets out of whack, out of sync, out of kilter.
So have you ever had any kind of hauntings in your store that you come back and you'll see everything was closed at night and you'll come out, no one has the key, and there's books or things laying on the ground that you know were not there when you keyed the building and closed it up?
Yes and no. Okay. Like sometimes I'll go to show somebody a book,
Yeah.
and I know where it is. I go there and it's not there because that person's not supposed to see it.
Ah,
And after they leave, I'll go there and there it is.
interesting.
Oh yeah.
I don't understand how these things happen, but I've seen it over and over and over again with different kinds of things like that, where things are meant to be and things that are not meant to be.
Well, and I think too, the thing about Reed's books are you can touch them and you can feel the energy from them. And like you said, there's good and there's bad, but I mean, when you feel them, sometimes you can feel the history that's coming through, and sometimes you can just feel at peace with it or feel like it's not at peace.
I had something new. I invited a friend over. As soon as he walked into the room, he didn't know. He goes, "Whoa, you have something new here." Like he felt it as soon as he walked in. And I said, "There it is." And he goes, "I knew it."
What was it? Can you tell us or no? Darn.
Off camera.
Off camera. Well, Reed, man, I appreciate your time, man. You're a valuable, informational guy. You know, you got a lot of knowledge and a lot of cool things. So thank you.
What would be the one thing if you were going to go to an antique bookstore that you would recommend somebody look for, so that they don't get?
Well,
I know that's a hard question because it's.
as far as typically what has value, if you go to an antique bookstore, isn't an old book on history or whatever. It's literature. It's the literature that you recognize, like an author. That's really, and when you're in bookstores, it's literature that typically has the value. Even there are books printed in the past 100 years that can be worth $100,000, whereas an old book in Latin from 500 years ago may only be worth 500.
Really?
But yeah, so age does not equate to value, except in very few circumstances, because it takes demand, and most people don't care about books in Latin.
Yeah.
But you get a first edition Great Gatsby 1925, or you get
Like the Jane Austen one.
Yeah, but if you're just talking past 100 years, Great Gatsby or a copy of The Hobbit with the original dust jacket, those books are worth $200,000. And you go, a 500-year-old Bible, if it's not like a first edition King James, is like a few thousand. So I mean, it's crazy. So that's what I'm saying. Literature there's a high demand for notable copies of literature that are first edition.
So one of the things that the family and friends that I would recommend you do is go to look up moonsrarebooks.com, and you can see Reed's shop here where we're at right now. And then Reed on social media.
Social media, Moon's Rare Books, on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
So, Terry, thank you for coming. I know your schedule is busy.
No, thank you, Dana, and thank you for allowing me to come and hear your knowledge, and see your treasures. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And
you're so busy too, so that's another thing you've always made time for me, and I appreciate it. Tisha, thank you for coming always and all the support that you give. I appreciate it, and I'm glad that you could come too and see everything. This has been a treat all the way around, and for you watching it, thank you for watching, and I hope there'll be more things coming too that we can share with you. But thanks again, everybody.
Thanks for inviting.
And with that said, that's a wrap.
All right.